I request everyone to please settle down.
You need the mic.
No.
Cordless?
कॉर्डलेस है, रिकॉर्ड होता है
कनेक्ट दिस वन ना
वो है बहुत नॉइज आ रहा है उसी से मोबाइल रख दिया उसी में हो तो रहा है लाइव फेसबुक भी करते हैं स्टार्ट करो हाँ
We will begin the session in 2 minutes.
JNU वाला ऑफिस बाहर
Good morning and welcome to JNU Academic's two-day conference, The Future of Indian Political Theory, Thinking Across Traditions. I request everyone to settle down so we can start with the session. Good morning again. I'm Vanshika. I take immense pleasure to introduce and begin the conference. To introduce JNU Academic yet again to our audience, JNU Academic is an entirely student-driven open forum that aims to keep up the debate and discussion culture of JNU. The foundational principle of the forum is to enrich and enliven possibilities of democratic and civil discourse inside the campus on issues of social relevance. Past speakers who have spoken from our forum include Professor Sudipta Kaviraj, Professor Satish Deshpande, Professor Ranveer Samartar, Professor Aparna Vaidik, Professor Sanjay Srivastav, Professor Anupama Roy, Professor Sudha Pai, Professor Maitreyi Chaudhary, Dr. Saroj Giri, Dr. Manindra Thakur, Dr. Amilari, Dr. Sudhir Sutar, Professor Aishwarya Kumar, Dr. Viren Murthy, Gautam Bhatia, Dr. Ajay Gudavarti, Dr. Harish Vankade, Professor Dwaipan Bhattacharya, Dr. Rinku Lamba and others. Let me take a moment and elaborate on why we chose The Future of Indian Political Theory, Thinking Across Traditions as the title of the conference. In his provoking piece titled Poverty of Indian Political Theory, Bikku Parekh argues that India, failing to produce original political theory despite bringing out Eurocentric nature of the Western political theory, was not only troubling but alarming. However, some of the seminal works produced during the last 4 decades show that not only several pertinent conceptualizations and theorizations have been underway, but also fundamental discussions around the questions such as what is Indian about Indian political theory were raised, discussed and written. Rajiv Bhargava's work on secularism, Partha Chatterjee's work on civil society and political society, Sudipta Kaviraj's take on modernity, Gurpreet Mahajan's work on Indian political theory, Gopal Guru's theorization of humiliation and social justice, and the important role that lived experiences play in social theorization are some of the most important treatises in this regard. Nonetheless, for long, the logic of Indian social science theorizing adhered to the phrase that Dipesh Chakraborty had first coined in provincializing Europe, and this was that Western thought is simultaneously indispensable yet inadequate for thinking through the various life practices of non-European societies. In a recently published paper, Marx and Post-Colonial Thinking, Sudipta Kaviraj makes an interesting move by contending this formulation wherein he suggests that there is now a need to think and tease out regularities in non-European histories itself and construct theory or undertake analytical operations of a higher order whose difference is not European thought. In this regard, 2 new books, one by Aditya Nigam, that is Decolonizing Theory, Thinking Across Traditions, and the other by Manindra Thakur, Politics of Knowledge, Social Studies in Indian Thought, are an attempt and intervention in the same direction, wherein the plea is to generate theory or concepts or explanations which are not colored by European thinking. But this plea for indigeneity is not a plea for authenticity. These works invite us to enter a creative dialogue between different traditions, including Western thought and theory. But they also remind us that the starting point of any conversation between the East and the West should not be that of inequality. And the East must not be seen as merely a consumer of Western ideas. Instead of harking back to the cultural relativist arguments, these books not only attempt to reformulate and challenge the concepts and categories of mainstream social theory, but also aspire to add to the global discourses of social theory. Also, for long, Indian political theory has centered around issues which are largely normative in nature. Issues of violence and cruelty have largely inhabited a marginal space in these discussions. Hence, one of the aims of the conference is also to shed light on the darker underbelly that modernity in India has produced. The challenge before us is now to understand how to go beyond the fashionable theme of historical difference and add to the grammar of social theory. It is in this broad context that we intend to organize this conference. Although the conference is about political theory, our speakers are from across disciplines, which reflects that we believe political theory is never exclusive to political scientists alone. The conference is subtitled Thinking Across Traditions is a term we borrowed from Professor Aligarh recent book Decolonizing Theory. Because all the past works in Indian political theory have been cross-disciplinary, the future would likely be too. To sum up, the conference would provide us with the opportunity to understand the new interventions and horizons in Indian political theory. By bringing on board stalwarts of Indian political theory together, we attempt to shed light on the prospects and challenges that it faces today. Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh's Tree of Life is chosen as our main poster's background precisely for this reason. Sheikh's Tree of Life is a mural present in Madhya Pradesh's Vidhan Bhavan. The structure of the tree in the mural branches and extends outward, expressing the multifaceted character of realities, faiths, and economies that constitute India. A tree is considered a repository, that which tells the stories to the world. Indian artistic traditions abound with the instances of trees being a metaphor for the presence of multivalent dimensions of peace and of knowledge. Sheikh's artistic representation is also driven by the motive to capture the entirety of the living, of the phenomenon with humility. Tree of Life, in other words, is about living in India. Living in India means living simultaneously in several temporalities and cultures, where one often walks into medieval situations and primitive people. The past exists as a living entity alongside the present here. As times and cultures converge, the citadels of purism explode. This conference is nothing without the generous donations that our students and faculty members make from time to time. For this two-day conference, JNU Academic collaborated with Foundation for Creative Social Research with the logistical support. In times we live in, where academic discussions are curtailed, compromising the democratic ethos, those donations drive the upcoming scholars to hope against the hope. Let me take a moment to request everyone present here to make donations so that we can continue to organize intellectually exciting sessions and conferences such as this one in the future again. You can make offline and online donations at the registration desk outside of the conference room or scan the QR code present in your registration kit. Thank you. May I now request Chetna to introduce the first panel titled Politics of Knowledge in India.
Good morning, one and all. We thank each one of you to be part of this conference. As part of the first session, we have three distinguished academicians with us. As the chair, we have Professor Gurpreet Mahajan. Professor Gurpreet Mahajan was a professor at the Center for Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Over the years, she has received a number of prestigious fellowships, including Senior Fulbright Scholarship at Columbia University. She was also a visiting fellow at the University of Toronto. At JNU, Professor Mahajan was also closely associated with the Center for Philosophy and was its chairperson in 2004 and 5. She specializes in philosophy of social sciences, political thought and theory, hermeneutics and multiculturalism, and has written extensively on issues relating to minorities, cultural diversity, religion and state, secularism, civil society, and notions of public and private. Her major publications include Explanation and Understanding in Human Sciences, Identities and Rights, Aspects of Liberal Democracy in India, The Multicultural Path, Issues of Diversity and Discrimination in Democracy. Her recent work includes Religion, Community and Development, Changing Contours of Politics and Policy in India. She is on the editorial board of several national and international journals. Professor Mahajan has contributed immensely in stimulating and maintaining the academic zeal in the Center for Political Studies for decades together, and we surely miss her a lot. We also have with us Professor Sudipta Kaviraj. Professor Kaviraj is currently teaching Indian politics and intellectual history at Columbia University. He works on two fields of intellectual history, Indian social and political thought in the 19th and 20th centuries, and modern Indian literature and cultural production. His other fields of interest and research include the historical sociology of the Indian state and some aspects of Western social theory. He has received his PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Prior to joining Columbia University, he taught at the Department of Political Studies at the School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS, University of London. He has also taught political science at JNU and was an Agatha Harrison Fellow at St. Anthony's College, Oxford. He is also a member of the Subaltern Studies Collective. His major works include The Imaginary Institution of India, Civil Society, History and Possibilities, Politics in India, and The Unhappy Consciousness, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, and the Formation of Nationalist Discourse in India. His recent works includes Enchantment of Democracy and other essays. And the more recent publication is Invention of Private Life. And as we are all aware, his scholarship has been crucial in defining and redefining aspects of modernity for the academic community. We also have with us Dr. Manindra Thakur. Dr. Thakur is an associate professor at the Center for Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. His interest areas include religion and politics, new social movements, Indian intellectual traditions, Marxism, social science research methods. He is one of the founding members of the Foundation for Creative Social Research, which aims at decolonizing the social sciences by engaging with non-European philosophical traditions and by linking theory and philosophy to the struggles for liberation. His major works include Democracy on the Move, Reflections on Movements, Promises and Contradictions, Wounded History, Religion, Conflict, Psyche and Social Healing. Professor Thakur has recently published his work titled Gyan Ki Rajniti, which is being well received and enthusiastically discussed among scholars of social sciences and humanities alike. I now request Professor Mahajan to kindly proceed with the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here for this seminar organized by JNU Academic, and it's a sense of deja vu because just a thought I had. I was sitting on the other side of the classroom and listening to just gallery. And today we are sitting here together, and it's nice to see, I think, the new generation of students who have organized and given us this occasion to be together and discuss, because this is a subject that we've been discussing off and on, often in the Victor's room in the past, in the 80s and in the 80s, I think. But even before us, very long. We left JNU in 1990. So, memories of this discussion go back a long time ago. I won't begin by what happened at the discussion that ensued when we were partying for the presented that paper. Because there was a sense of surprise and shock, but we also had a response at that time. But I'll come to that later. I know you're all eagerly waiting the beginning of this particular session. So without much ado, I'm going to request Sudipta Kaviraj to make this comment or take observations and presentation on the topic. And what is going to be about Manindra's book.
Well, I'm very glad to be back in JNU. As Gurpreet said, I've been associated with JNU from the very start of it.
I think there's an echo. I'm getting an echo, but
So I feel associated with JNU since the start of its teaching. I can't say that I was associated with the founding of JNU, which was I think in 69 or something. But I joined JNU in 71, so which was the year we started teaching. Now, I'm not prepared generally for a discussion about politics of knowledge, but I was told that I should have a conversation with Manindra about his book. So Manindra's book, of course, is about the politics of knowledge, so in a general sense, I will be talking about that. But I would focus primarily on Manindra's book. I have a slight complaint about Manindra's book, because I think, or let me try to put it this way. I've always been very influenced by Marxist thinking, and I find the concept of estrangement. I've always found the concept of estrangement very, very arresting. Arresting does not always mean it was arresting to me in two different senses at different stages of my life. Very early, when I started teaching here when I was very young, I found the concept of estrangement very attractive, purely intellectually. I found it a very arresting concept about what it talked about. But gradually, I kept feeling the kind of thing that Marx had called estrangement was not something that I found around me very much. Because the society in which I lived did not have enough of a developed capitalist economy and a capitalist social life for that conception of estrangement to be very relevant. But gradually, I came to realize that the term estrangement had a range of applicability which was not beyond what Marx himself thought. And so I want to start our discussion by the proposal that our relationship with both the world in which we live and the knowledge to which we try to grasp that world, knowledge in two of its senses, the everyday knowledge to which every social individual interacts with the social world, and the more specialized knowledge which we, I can, if I say that a little, it's okay. Is it okay? Okay. Is it okay? Okay. I'll talk to you
Earlier one was better, but then you keep moving away from your lips.
Is it okay now? So going back to what I wanted to say, I feel that we live in a world in a condition of estrangement, which I can call broadly a condition of cognitive estrangement, but in two senses. One is that we have a kind of a strange relationship with the world in our everyday social interaction sometimes, but I think much more importantly, the systematic, institutionalized cognitive system that we inhabit in the university of colleges, even in our schools, I think actually develops a kind of exchange relationship with the world. So let me start with what I consider to be the meaning of the term estrangement. Estrangement is not just the presence of strangeness in the world. The presence of strangeness in the world is part of the world itself. It's a normal condition of the world. Estrangement is a strangeness of something which should not be strange to you. That is estrangement. And I think Marx uses the term estrangement in that sense. And I personally feel that there is a kind of deep estrangement process which is built into the cognitive process through which we all travel. I traveled through that in my formation as a political science student. I'm sure all of you do that as well. And at the center of it is a question which I think is the most important question for our social science. But in spite of all the radicalism of our social science, not just radicalism in the political sense, but radicalism in the cognitive or epistemic sense, I think we do not address that question sufficiently. And this is my first slightly muted criticism of Manindra's book. Because Manindra's book is in Hindi, it is in the vernacular. And writing in the vernacular itself is a statement. And I have a slight complaint with Manindra that I wish he had actually expanded on the significance of this act itself. Because writing in the vernacular, I think, is a critical act. And the book does not do enough reflection on that. That's why, since this is a conversation with him, I would like Manindra to talk about that in detail. Secondly, if we follow the question of estrangement in thinking about the cognitive process in our society, obviously in Marx, the term estrangement is so powerful because it has two sides. One is the purely cognitive side, the difficulty in understanding something that we have collectively created, but which creates difficulties in our understanding in spite of that relationship. That is, I think, the enigma of the concept of estrangement. Now, this is one side. But Marx is also very clear that in his hands, the concept of estrangement also has a sociological side. That the estrangement that capitalist processes produce between different classes in society who are estranged from each other, and the fourth meaning of estrangement in his fragment, that also creates sociological effects. It creates misunderstanding, it creates resentment, it creates animosity, enmity, etc. So I think we would not do justice to Marx's concept of estrangement if we do not keep both these things in mind. So whenever we see something as a problem of estrangement, we must realize that there is a cognitive component to it, but there is also a sociological component to it. And I think that is something that we should also attend to. I don't think we have the time, at least in my session, to talk about that. But I hope in different phases of your conference, we come to that more centrally and discuss that. By this I mean that there is a resentment that is, I think, justifiably flawed in people who deal with the world in the vernacular and who are treated as fools by people who deal with the world exclusively in English. I don't think there's anything, anything strange about that feeling. And I don't think, as an academic system, we actually give serious attention to that question. And that's why I think Manindra's book should be read at two different registers. The cognitive question which he foregrounds in his own writing, but also the sociological, quasi-sociological question of the relation between two languages and the people who live in these two languages. I think this is something that ought to be brought out more centrally. I don't have to tell you that this is something which is deeply connected to to all kinds of obvious religious and obvious political processes that is going on in our society. Now, let me now talk a little bit about my differences, my agreements with Manindra, my disagreements with Manindra, and what I would like to call my differences with Manindra. I would make a distinction between disagreement and difference. By disagreement I mean that we're thinking about the same thing, but we have different views. Difference means something different from that. Different means that in thinking about something, Manindra goes in one direction. I do not disagree with what he is doing there, but my thinking goes in another. So disagreement and difference should not be treated identically. So let me tell you what my agreements with Manindra are. Writing in a vernacular, I put down some notes, so I'll simply read it because it makes it quicker. Writing in a vernacular is a massive displacement in itself. But the main underlying question is it merely a natural language displacement or a conceptual language displacement? Is it simply that Manindra is writing in Hindi what he could have written in English, right? Or what he had written in English? He has a book about the philosophical crisis and capitalism. So if he wrote that not in English but in Hindi, is it something like that? I don't think it is. I don't know whether he would agree with me, but I don't think it is. If it is the second, that it's the conceptual language displacement, this involves an immense proposal of change, and precisely because of its immensity, we must first judge if we should responsibly make the proposal or not. Because if we propose something that is beyond our present capacity, this might cripple us by its difficulty, rather than energize us by its attractiveness. So what does the conceptual language shift proposal mean? Manindra, I think, squarely states his preference for a conceptual language shift by suggesting a very interesting line of argument about which I am still slightly unsure. Human nature is clearly a fundamental concept in modern social theorizing. You should note that I am not saying modern Western social theorizing, modern social theorizing. There are great variations in Western reflections on human nature, which I think he underestimates by focusing excessively on the positive individualistic conception. I shall come to that to specify my disagreement with Manindra. But he suggests retooling our thinking about human nature by substituting Western conceptions by the long-standing Hindu idea of the four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. I think this can be a profoundly productive move, but it has some obstacles. The first is that to explore the full complexity and subtlety of the Purushartha tradition, we need a really serious engagement with the corpus of Sanskrit, religious, theological, ethical thinking, which is hard to acquire. We spent a lifetime to bring under some control the complexities of the modern Western intellectual tradition. We cannot bring under reasonable control the vast resources of the Indic tradition of Hindu and Buddhist philosophical thinking in a short time. So this can quickly turn from something which is attractive into an impossibility argument. But this is part of my agreement with Manindra. I think it's a very productive solution and should be taken forward. Manindra, however, already suggests a way out, because we are not scholars of the Indic tradition, and we cannot simply by a decision today, within 2 years, become scholars of the Indic tradition. If we do that, we simply show how little we understand the nature of philosophical tradition. You must understand that at least I studied Western political theory from class 9 in my school to the end of my University, and I continue. So to say that I would use Indian philosophical thinking lightly, I think is not a responsible partner. That's what I mean. I want it to be done very, very much, but I want people to understand what it can do. Which is also my slight criticism of Professor Tariq's valedictory lecture to your council some time back, where he said that when we criticize Western social theory, we should use resources from the Indian tradition. So Manindra already suggests a way out, which I think is a partial solution, when I asked him where he got the glosses of the four concepts. Because the interpretation of moksha seemed to me to be both very intriguing and totally unconventional. His answer was that he took it from conversation from scholarly experts. This is not an untried or uncommon method of grasping difficult ideas. Consider how many of us get their initial understanding of Hegel from reading Charles Taylor or Courgette or somebody like that. So when Manindra says that I might not have direct access, to the great texts of Indian philosophical thought, but I got it from people who are experts in that. He is doing something which is not outlandish, which is not unusual. He is doing something that we always do in thinking about the modern tradition itself. But this needs to be grounded eventually, in a deeper, serious acquaintance with what the tradition actually taught, and then its possibilities of elaboration. What I imply by this is that, when we grasp the tradition well, we did not stop with what the tradition itself has taught. I think the productive relationship with any tradition is to try to extend its ultimate craft. If you take one of the greatest definitions of a tradition in Sanskrit, in the Abhinavabharati, just before he goes into the commentary on the Rasa Sutta, Abhinavagupta actually gives, he has about 10 lines of what is a tradition. And the definition of the tradition there is precisely this. A tradition which is stuck is not a tradition anymore. A tradition that is stuck cannot perform the task of a tradition. So what I'm saying is that if we say that we would like to follow any aspect of the Indian tradition, does not necessarily mean that we should repeat the meaning of the Purushartha or meaning of moksha that we get there. I think we are free to elaborate on that, to make it to our work, rather than be content with the work that we did for others. But this needs to be grounded in deeper and serious acquaintance with what the tradition actually taught and its possibilities of elaboration. Otherwise, it would fail to be intelligible to the expert on the one side and meaningful to ordinary users of these religious ideas who have their own relationship with the experts in a non-academic kind of way. We can have a serious and fruitful discussion about whether Manindra's gloss of moksha, which I found fascinating, because moksha, partly because I just wrote a book in Bangla, which has a whole chapter which is concerned with the difference between Swarga and Vrindavan, on moksha and Vrindavan. Where my argument is that the Vrindavan argument is a rejection of the moksha argument. The Vaishnavas say we do not want moksha, we want Vrindavan. Right. So that is part of the traditional thinking. Manindra's draw on moksha is found fascinating because he says that moksha is essentially consciousness about self-consciousness. Consciousness about consciousness, which is self-consciousness. It's a productive argument. By contrast, for instance, Artha is an instantly useful concept, I think simply because it regards economic and political power as always intrinsically connected. So we do not have to make a separate move to bring politics and economics together and produce political economy. If you use the term Artha in the traditional sense, then the political and the economic are strictly together already in the concept itself. further should try to elaborate a more extended argument about politics and individuality, using the four Purushottam as his fundamental conceptual element. Because I think that to be the main challenge of the book, the challenge that the book is making to people who think about political theory, not just the, making small changes to our thinking about political thought, but saying that we should try to think about issues of personal life and issues of social life by using these four categories. But in Manindra's book, at this stage, it is still a proposal. It is not something which is worked out to be. I should not say that, for instance. I greatly like the sections on the Artha in one sense. I really like your section on Karma, because there are also some things which are very, very interesting. For instance, your take on Karma is not a traditional take at all, because there is a great deal of defensiveness about Karma as sexual desire in older tradition, and there is nothing of that in your acceptance of that as one of the fundamental consequences of human life. So, but I think you need to elaborate that more to show where we can go. Now my disagreement. I have two disagreements, which I will make three disagreements. One can be stated in one sentence. Two disagreements, which I will make it. I think Manindra treats the whole of the Western tradition as a Purva Daksha, and the whole of the Indian tradition, amended in our way, as a coherent system, as a Uttara Daksha. Yeah. This is something which I think is problematic. I feel both sides of this contrast need to be deactivated. The unity of the Western tradition, when we use that phrase, is a unity of the field. It's not a unity of the doctrine. And nor is Indian tradition is a unity of the doctrine. It's a unity of the field. And therefore, when you go into the real task of preparing arguments, I don't think you can invoke the tradition as a whole. For instance, if you say that I invoke the Western tradition, it's not clear whether you are invoking a Hobbesian argument or you are using a Hegelian argument. So that's why I think when you sort of cash it out in terms of an actual argumentation, I don't think you can do with that kind of general statement about the tradition. You have to deaggregate the tradition. As traditions, these do not have sufficient internal coherence to be treated as a singular theory or argument. In some cases, there is remarkable similarity between Hindu, Islamic, and Western pre-modern and modern thinking, which is also something that we should know. These are the two disagreements, that is, both the Western and the Indian side should be debated. The third disagreement, which is more profound, but can be stated very easily. Now, I was convinced by reading Marx when I started teaching in JNU, very early in the 70s, that I should not use the notion of a human nature beyond some very general psychosomatic constant that we can see in human beings, which we can use parametrically in thinking about social science. But I don't think it helps very much beyond that level of argumentation. So I'm a historicist, and therefore I do not believe in using human nature as one of the central concepts in thinking about social theory. But you do. And I think from your point of view, it's absolutely legitimate to suggest that the conception of human nature that we should use should come from the Indian side rather than from the modern Western side. The other point, very quickly, is actually many of the arguments we use to find fault with Western theory are actually drawn from dissenting traditions of Western thought itself. Historicists, hermeneutic, phenomenological, all these critiques of often dominant Western thinking are not of Indian origin. But they're sometimes, consonant. They're sometimes ideas that chime with certain ideas that you get on the Indian side. I particularly feel that one of the major shortcomings of the Indian tradition, here I think I would have disagreement with people who are great supporters of the Indian tradition. I have felt that one of the major shortcomings of the Indian tradition, curiously, is the lack of an explicit and expanded theory of historicity, although there is no shortage of highly sophisticated analysis of the traces of time in the phenomenal and the human world. I think it had amazingly sophisticated thinking about temporality, but it is not in the form of historicity. And because I do not find that in the Anglo-American tradition either, I lean very, very heavily in the Olympical and the German tradition. Finally, my differences, where I'll go in a slightly different direction. Let me make just 2 points, 2 remarks very quickly. I do not think all Western thought is Western in a very strong sense. It's a paradoxical, provocative thing to say, but it's not, I'm not trying to be enigmatic. What I mean is that when we think about the social world, we use arguments and ideas which are at different levels of generality. So there are certain ideas which are at a very high level of generality, where accidentally that particular idea might have come as a proposal from a Western thinker or an Indian thinker. But I don't think there is something which is intrinsically Indian or intrinsically Western about that. So if you read Abhinav and read his theory of the city, I don't think there is anything intrinsically Indian about that. It is not that it's something which can be applied only to Indian art and be meaningful. I think it is something which can be applied to art anywhere, just like Aristotle's theory of art is. However, there are certain levels of thinking where the concepts and argumentation are much more historical. They are far more specific. And it is at that level where, if you pluck that from the European side or the Indian side, and then apply it to the European or the Indian side laterally, across the boundary of historical difference, I think it starts producing consequences which are cognitively deleterious consequences. The obvious example, because I'm talking in JNU, it's also something very close to me biographically, was the great debate about whether there was feudalism in Indian history. I gradually came to realize that there is something wrong with the question itself. Why should we discuss that question? That, was there feudalism in India? Why should there be feudalism in Indian history? But that is because feudalism is actually a historical concept, intrinsically. It's not a general concept like our such concept. So that is my general response to Manindra's work. I would like to make one very last remark about the difficulty of this undertaking. I have no doubt that this is actually the most important task facing political theory, social and political theory in Indian universities. Because I was thinking of coming to this, I listened to Professor Parikh's remarks at the end of the conference on the 50 years of CPA, when he gave the valedictory remark. In the valedictory remarks, he made a similar argument that we know what the main arguments against Western political theory are, but we should use ideas and arguments from our own tradition, because our tradition is so long. I have no disagreement with that, but I think anyone who makes that remark also has an obligation to remind people who would follow that remark how difficult that is. It's not something which is easy. You cannot simply pluck concepts out of a tradition without its surrounding context and then start using it. The other thing is, I'll finish with that many of the, let me give an example. I have some Sanskritist friends, some of them are students also. They sometimes say that when you talk about aesthetics, there's a lot of reference to Indian thought. particularly Kashmiri aesthetic theory, which is the one little bit that I know slightly better in the Indian tradition. But they say that when you are talking about politics, there is never even a reference to anything which is Indian. But I want to defend myself in that, because going back to a very elementary argument about historicity, the argument that you get in Kautilya, there are arguments which are historical in that sense. Read Kautilya, read the Arthashastra closely. It's about force. It's about a particular kind of economy which is resumed in the political interchanges and interactions, etc. So it's because of its historicity that there's a kind of ontological bar in our easily picking things up from there and then trying to apply that to the understanding of the political environment in which we live, which is democratic. And I don't think there's any sense of this kind of system in mostly Indian political thought. But I think there are books which we should study as political theory with great curiosity. Arthashastra, of course, the sections that we have on Rajniti in the Dharmashastra text. But much more importantly, if you read the Arthashastra and the Smriti in Dharmashastra, you should also read the Shukraniti, which is so different. The Shukraniti's position on caste is very different from what you get in Manindra thinking. But most importantly, I think, I would like to see this Center for Political Studies do a big conference on something like the Rajataranga, which is about the use of political power historically in a particular kind of context, in a language which is more recognizable to us, right? That kind of thing. So, because of that, I feel that when I try to understand the political process in India, I cannot draw very much from the older Indian tradition, simply because of the historicity of the nature of that political thought. So what shall we do? I don't think we are helpless. What we should do is, we should reduce our excessive respect for Western thinkers. We should learn from them, but we should also learn to do what Abhinava says, for instance, you can do to his predecessors, that you learn from them, but you also learn to bend them in order to put them to your purpose. So that's why I think Indian political thought, the term Indian in Indian political thought can mean two very different things. Indian can mean something which is just locative, that is the Saptami Vibhakti, that is the Adhikaran, just the place where it happens to happen. Or it can be something which is much more intrinsic, which there is something which makes it Indian, which cannot have happened in any other place. If we want to do that, then Indian political thought can be Indian in two different senses. It can be Indian in Manindra's way, and I think it's very important that we should do that. We haven't done that at all. That it draws upon traditions which are pre-modern or general Indian tradition. But I have also argued that we also have a great stock of modern Indian political theory, where the ideas come from the West, but the ideas are actually bent to suit the Indian environment by our great thinkers. And all the important thinkers that we read, starting from, let's say, Bunken, Gurpreet in Bengal, Gandhi, Thakur, Ambedkar, all these people do the same thing. So when we say that we follow the Indian tradition, we should not mean only the Indian tradition of the past. We should not forget that we also have an Indian tradition, ideas that you do not get in contemporary Western thinking, which is specifically Indian, developed in the Indian historical environment of coloniality. And that would make our political theory Indian. Thank you.
Thank you very much for initiating this discussion. there is so much to say here, but I think since he wanted to talk about Professor Thakur's book, maybe I should not intervene at this stage and give the stage over to him to make the responses, because I think some very fundamental questions have been raised about, he used the word historicity, but I think the fundamental question which lies behind that is translation or mediation an ongoing process? Is reading ever possible without that mediation? Whether we are thinking in terms of invoking the past, in a more immediate present, and so on and so forth. There is also, of course, a great deal of attention then to be given if mediation is inevitable, then how do we think in terms of that which is Indian? And there is a two-way historicity that is at work. Our own present location at this moment when we are reading, and of course the different locations in which the texts emerge. How does that mediation and that complexity really work? So I think that's the big issue that he has asked us to think in terms of. We could add many other questions, but I will not burden him at this moment. We'll come back to it later. In terms of what does it mean to constitute a tradition? When we are talking about Indian political theory, we are talking about tradition, but how is a tradition constituted? What are the ingredients of that? What are the conditions under which that tradition is going to be constituted? So I think there are very many big questions which we are going to visit through the conference, I think the two-day conference, but at this moment, all over to you, Manindra. Just come here. No. Call for processes of translation.
Thank you, Professor Kaviraj.
Sorry to intervene, but you see that I retain the Guru Shishya Parampara. I know, but I must give you respect. You know, when I say to Indian tradition, I am
Thanks first to JNU Academic that you have organized such a wonderful conference. I think JNU survives. This only proves that JNU survives all kinds of odds. I will pick up a few issues that we have been discussing. And the first one, of course, is the question of language. And I will respond to the request that I should have expanded on the question of language a little more. I think I have a position on language, and particularly this position is confirmed by coming to JNU, that there is a kind of language racism in India. And I have encountered a number of students from my center, from other centers, coming to me and saying that they will not survive due to the language. As humiliation that has been produced to them, I have witnessed that humiliation. And in fact, unfortunately, the community as such, including the faculty, probably or may need to be more sensitive about the question of language. There are debates about it, but that apart, I think, my position is that, and this is the position that we took long back when struggling for introduction of Indian languages in IITs, in the entrance test only. Our concern was that 97% students in India were educated in Indian languages, out of which only 3% students would get in IIT. And that was quite a successful movement in 90s, and IIT introduced this exam in Indian languages and talked about training them 3 months in advance in English language to manage. I think JNU have been requesting, and this has not happened. But the question of language, I think, should not be stressed beyond a point. It should not become a question of identity for me. My friend calls such people language jihadis, Hindi jihadis. So we should also not become Hindi jihadis. Language should be a medium of expression, should be a medium of articulation. And of course, it's a new world when we enter into language. So all languages should be respected. And I think I would agree with GND's argument that all languages have their own epistemic worth, and we need to access them. uh, the idea that some languages are cognitively inferior actually creates big problem for a knowledge community. And also I would like to consider the use of the term vernacular. Recently, Justice Deepak said that this is a derogatory word. I was trying to look into various resources and found that a lot of people think it is a derogatory word. I definitely think it is a derogatory word. When I was told by a professor of mine that, well, I mean, I write very less. I don't write much. I don't think writing is my capacity. But when I started writing in Hindi, for some reasons, her expression was, okay, you have started a lot in writing a lot in vernacular, which means that you are not writing anything important. It's just kind of popular thing you are writing. So I think that is the expression that comes with the idea of vernacular. Maybe we need to get rid of that if we want to have language democracy in India. Language democracy is definitely a necessary thing that we must aspire to, but not falling in the trap of language identity. I think that would be again a problem. I think the next issue I would like to pick up is Purusharth tradition. And I must mention here that my engagement with Indian intellectual tradition is very late, and it is, as you rightly said, that is very difficult to get into the textual traditions. And I took two shortcuts. One, that we started a project called Mapping Knowledge and Practice in India, and we started going to villages to see how they are connecting with knowledge traditions. What are they taking from there? So we were funded by JNU at some stage also, and we made a group of 4 people mainly. There were other people also associated, but these 4 were active. Professor Aflaq Ahan from Persian, Professor S.K. Shukla from Sanskrit, and Professor Deven Chaudhary from Hindi. And we started locating villages in our own areas and other areas, which would be maybe called knowledge villages, where knowledge is a practice. And surprisingly, we discovered that in Professor Deven Chaudhary's area, there is a tradition of celebrating 5 rishis who created 5 texts, and those texts are respected by him. So we are trying to map whether in the collective consciousness those texts are still available, or the entire Sufi tradition that flourishes in different areas. Dr. Ahan brought in that. I went to Nyay and Kanra areas, 2 villages, located 2 villages where several texts were written in centuries. Like for instance, there is a village in Madhubani where Nyay texts were written in 14th century, a lot of texts, and it has 1,000 years of tradition of Nyay. So try to find out what are they locating. It is there where I got this idea of Purusharth, while talking to a great Nagai. And he said that moksha is actually very closely connected with what we call Isthit Prajna. That we become conscious of our own consciousness, and at that stage, when we reach to that stage, when we connect ourselves with the universe, we treat ourselves as part of the universe. And then I found that even Gandhi was kind of talking in the same way. But that changes the politics. And then there is a textual tradition I discovered. For instance, there's a text which is called Moksha Shastra. That is Yoga Vasishtha. So Yoga Vasishtha is about the idea that Ram is very unhappy, and he says, I don't know the rule. So Vasishtha tells him that why you have to become a king, and how you should become a king. So he talks about that by becoming a king you may get a moksha. So not that it is a hindrance in the path of a moksha. So the idea that comes out there is this, and I depended a lot for this on, of course, Professor S.K. Shukla. And we are also trying to discover presence of similar ideas in the Persian tradition. Professor Ahan is here, who has argued that in Rumi's tradition, one can decipher this notion of Purusharth and Vikas, and one can see how he is trying to understand human nature in these terms. So it looks like it is quite a general term, or quite a universal understanding of capturing human beings, their behavior. One difference between the modern Western and this thing, or advantage of this is that it is a dynamic concept. As the people also suggest, that there could be new inclusion in that. In fact, Jaya Krishna thinks that it is not fundamental to Indian intellectual tradition. But I think it is fundamental, as I tried to survey various texts on Jyotish, on Tantra, on Ayurveda and Kama Sutra. Everywhere the text begins with this idea that this is how human beings are constituted, and this particular shastra is about this aspect of human being. But that does not ignore the other aspects; they are interconnected. So it looks like that it is a totalized understanding of human beings compared to the detotalized understanding that we get in the philosophy, which has deep impact of Cartesian real life. And that is what makes me attracted towards this. And I think we had a long discussion. A group of us had a long discussion with Rai Bhaskar on this, and he also argued that probably this kind of totalized understanding may have deep impact on social science, thinking about social science. I think I must make a disclaimer here, and that is why the book is a tentative book, and I was not very keen to publish it. It was lying on my table for 3 years. I'm still not very confident about it, because I think this is not my project. What I have done in this book is, there are two very interesting words. One is Bunana, other is Vinana. I think I have done only Bunana part of it. I have taken up two concepts and tried to see how this can help us in understanding our social reality. Can we also do this Vinana thing? Can we kind of create a fabric out of this set of concepts we can generate, which can talk of what we are saying conceptual I'm not sure at the moment, but I think that is the project that one should do. That doesn't mean that we need to undermine other culture or other knowledge traditions. In fact, I have been arguing since the beginning that all knowledge produced by humanity should be considered as collective resources. And there is a need to have a dialogue, and there is a need to have constant expansion. So instead of giving up the universal, we must strive for universal, but the universal should remain always emergentist. It is never a complete universal. Every new input in that universal should destabilize the universal, and we should start for a new universal. So I think that if we take that, if you look at this text also, I am not limited to Indian text. In fact, I have drawn from various books produced, ideas produced in different parts of the world on each theme of that. And I think that interaction will take us far. What I call this art vistar, that the meaning of a term can only be seen in way of a spectrum. So we constantly give a vistar to it, and historical evolution of the term also keeps expanding the term all the time. I think I want to argue that it's not only Purusharth. Purusharth is one that has been highlighted mostly, but another aspect of this group is very interesting, that is Vikar. And Vikar is also integral to us. It is also part of our being. It is not something that has to be completely abandoned. The only thing is the balance between Purusharth and Vikar, and balance between all these elements. And what makes it dynamic is the concept of time and space. That how the same thing have different balance in different time and space. For instance, if we are at different age or different geographic location, we have different kind of balance. Growth may be dominant part of our personality at some stage. So this dynamics, I think, is important. And what you talked about other day, the frame as Purusharth, I think this kind of experiment has been done earlier also, and there are debates, like Patanjali says there are only two Purusharths, but then people have expanded that. As long as we have the idea of Purusharth and Vikar together, then we can always kind of expand and see what other elements could be included in that. I'm sure that Prem could be another Purusharth, though I think Prem could also be accommodated in the Purusharth called Kam. But one can always go on. The Purupaksh, I don't think my Purupaksh is the West as such. I've used Paschat here definitely, but I don't know Paschat very well, as you rightly said, that we have only read secondary materials, that too I am not focused on them, and then we have never read German, we don't know French, and German and English I think are contradictory languages in some ways. German always has a middle space, and English is a binary language. So I found it very problematic when I got the translation of Marx's one statement, which is a very crucial statement for me. Religious world is a reflex of the real world. The word reflex in German could be translated in Hindi as Anyonasya. Anyonasya means dependent on each other, whereas in English it means the reflex is one-sided, just kind of one thing. So probably translation of German and English might have lost a lot of things. So I don't claim, and I cannot claim for talking about the West. What I think, and as I mentioned earlier also, that my Purupaksh is the mainstream social science in India. And the way mainstream social science in India talk about reality, the kind of epistemic frame they have, the kind of arguments that we have, there I think we need to do something about it. Particularly, we have to really explain the way people are thinking. I think somewhere we have failed to explain the people are thinking. Just a small example. I was in a constituency doing a study, and somebody won the election who was a lady of middle age, having no money, having no caste resource. The only thing was, in her favor, the question of justice. So everybody whom we met, across caste, community, everybody, they said, uske saath anyay hua hai, which means they are operating with certain idea of nyaya. What is that idea of nyaya? Are we able to capture that? We keep doing laws and everything. They don't depend on laws to get the idea of justice. So how are the people thinking? Over the decades, we have realized that we are thinking in one way and people are thinking in another way, and they give surprises to us. Maybe we are not really connected with the way they are thinking. So therefore, we have to probably get into their collective consciousness. So my Purupaksh is this Purupaksh. And I'm sure that this is an unfolding project where we need to have dialogue with different traditions within India and outside India. Instead of becoming expert on traditions, as social scientists, we really have to see if we can expand our framework, which can give us better understanding of our own reality, and that too for the purpose of transforming our reality. The liberation is the key word for me actually. The last thing, if we go to the next, on Indian political theory and the Parek's idea of an Indian political theory, I think I'm teaching this Indian intellectual traditions CPS, and for 3-4 years I've taught, and also discovering myself what it is actually. I have a feeling, I'm not sure about it, but I have a feeling that there are several theories scattered in these texts. Maybe since we think of theory in a very particular way, we have a definition of theory to which we want to look for theory, and therefore we are not getting it. Because if human beings are theory building beings, then we must have built some theory. And if we have built such a strong state like Kautilya, now how can we build a strong state without having a theory of power? That's my question at the moment. And I think now I am able to get some idea what could be Kautilya's theory of power, which is, I think, the ethical realist theory of power. It is not realist. A lot of people argue that Kautilya was the first realist. I think Kautilya probably was the first ethical realist. So the ethics and power, this was a challenge for Kautilya, how to maintain ethics with such a powerful king. Similarly, for instance, Vidur Dhritarashtra Samvad, it's a very interesting dialogue. Dhritarashtra asked that why there is a war. We want to get rid of. So why why there is a war. And Vidu says that this is because of you. He said, why? He said, because you have not done justice. He said, what is justice? And then he says, what you don't want for yourself, don't want for others. I think this is one of the crucial part of theory of justice, any theory of justice that we want to build. Similarly, in the modern period, I think, I was just trying to rethink about Ram Mohan Roy and Vivekananda. Ram Mohan Roy's argument on sati has 3 stages, which gives a wonderful theory of religion. How do you look for a kind of project of liberation theology within religion? For instance, Sumit Sarkar criticizes him, says that when he was writing in Persian, he was much secular. When he started writing in Bangla, he became more religious because he was referring to religious texts. So most of the time he was referring to religious texts, but his first strategy was an imminent critique telling the supporters of sati that your texts don't support it. Then second level was that there are 2 options. One is sati, the other is ascetic life. So that is a better option, ascetic life. Then why don't you allow them to remain ascetic? Who is responsible for that? Then he says, you are responsible for that. It is a reform needed in you. But the third is very crucial thing that he says. He connects the question of widowhood with political economy. And he says in Bengal, the property regime is such that once he loses her husband, she doesn't have anything, any property to survive. And that becomes a big problem. I think this is a wonderful move that one can take if one has to fight against conservatism of any religion. So liberation theology, that is a theory of religion, I think, which Marx will also agree with, that has a root in similarly, in Vivekananda, I think instead of working for identity politics, he was giving a theory how to get rid of identity politics. So I will not elaborate on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The organizers tell me that we have a few minutes for question and answer time. I'm going to make the race. Far too many issues have emerged, but let's take a few questions. I'm going to bunch them together and then I'll just do if there are too many hands and we can go some time. Yes. You just stand up and till the mic comes. We don't have that much time, so I'm just going to ask everybody to use the most powerful voice. Silence everybody.
Hello.
Yeah, so my question, actually I wanted to try the 2 aspects of the discussion and then ask a question. So, sir, when you were talking about the kind of detotalization of ontology and the point of departure in the modern epistemic frame that we see at the point of partition dualism, and the need for the detotalization of ontology that Roy also talked about, and in which Indian intellectual tradition has got the potential to do that. And so then the second aspect, when we're talking about the Bunna and the Binna distinction, the kind of the need to go from Bunna towards the Binna and to create a kind of narrative within that framework. So, sir, do you think that what kind of theorization, like the kind of veil of ignorance that we were talking in the dialogue of Vidur and Gurpreet that we were talking about, so different kind of theorization that has got the potential within the framework of Indian intellectual tradition and the kind of beginning that the new kind of narrative and the need to go towards the new sense of universality that we're talking about. So how can we proceed in a structured, orderly fashion to give it a new kind of framework within the framework of Indian intellectual tradition? That's my question. Thank you. My name is Rakesh from Manindra.
Thank you.
Thank you for thank you for this thought-provoking talk. My question is two actually. My first question is, to what extent do you think that politics of knowledge is a politics to preserve the knowledge of the social elite and their everyday embodiment? And second part is, when you are talking about the questions of language, because the language is a kind of, it becomes a culture also. So, does the way of thinking through a particular language also produce a different thought and knowledge.
My question is to do with the characterization of Sanskrit and Persian traditions as Indian traditions. Sorry. How would you look at that characterization with respect to traditions held in other languages in India, particularly not just geographically in terms of the south, the northeast, that maybe those kind of liminalities, but also within Hindi and Urdu speaking states where there are also oral traditions that have been passed on and philosophical traditions held in, for instance, Adivasi languages, and how would you engage those with what you characterize as Indian traditions within Sanskrit and Persian traditions of thought? Thank you.
My question is, can tradition as a continuing way of thinking which informs action and is closely associated with practice, the distinction between theory and tradition kind of draws from the distinction between masses and elites. To what extent can theory as an elite exercise incorporate tradition within its ambit of theorizing? Thank you. My name is Rashi from CPS JNU. Hello. My question is goes to Kaviraj and Hello. Yeah. My question is to both Prof. Kaviraj and Mr. Thakur. I was wondering whether, as I come from the discipline of philosophy. So, I was wondering, I wanted to ask Professor Kaviraj whether, when he says, that human nature, that the theory of human nature is not essential. I would propose that Gandhiji put before us two opposing theories of human nature. One which would either be basically violent, and the other which would be essentially non-violent. And he argued that the non-violent was the overpowering one. And I would suggest that perhaps the Indian tradition follows this strongly if one would, perhaps read between the lines both Kautilya's Arthashastra and the Shanti Parva. Following that, I think, considering that the Arthashastra in its initial chapter says that the science of politics would be based on knowledge of the Sankhya, Yoga and Lokayata. So I would read that as macrocosm, microcosm and the people rather than kinship. And so I think that the main debate is whether the power of the state versus the power of civil society is a debate worth pursuing. Yeah. Thank you.
These last two questions.
Can I? Okay. My question is to Manindra sir. So we have discussed about the different conception of nyaya embedded in the knowledge system of people and all. But when we think about anyaya, if we think about injustice manifested in the relevant society in different forms, the tradition of nyaya, if we borrow it from tradition and if we borrow it from the people's discourse, we see that beyond the binary between the tradition and modernity, we see that both forms are emanating in one way or the other. So just to have a ethical framework of justice borrowing from maybe religious text or from folk tradition and all, is it that helpful? Because it again becomes an exercise in thinking which is not rooted in any form of kind of meaningful experience of people, because it does not touches the life of people in the way it should actually create a ground. Because if we
I think we got the question very clearly. Put it very nicely.
My question is to Sudipta Kaviraj, sir. You said that there is temporality, but not historicality. I want to understand this. Can there be temporality without historicality? Thank you, sir.
सर ये टॉक अबाउट न्याय के बारे में आपने बात किया और आपने बात किया ट्रेडिशन के बारे में, फिर आप ये भी बात कर रहे थे कि जो आपने एग्जाम्पल दिया कि न्याय में कैसे एक गांव में जहाँ पे ट्रेडिशन होता है तो कैसे मतलब लोग जो उन औरत को वोट करते हैं बिना एक कॉन्सेप्ट पे जाने के। तो मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि ट्रेडिशंस में जब अन्याय हो रहा था, मतलब जब किसी कास्ट या पर्टिकुलर पे अन्याय हो रहा था, तो उस समय जो न्याय देने वाला भी लाइक फ्रॉम द पर्टिकुलर ग्रुप राइट पर्टिकुलर सोसाइटी, तो जो न्याय पे अन्याय पे न्याय देने वाला जो एक समुदाय से आ रहा था, फिर उस समय ट्रेडिशन को कैसे आप देखते हैं, मतलब कि जो ऑपरेसर भी है और जो ऑपरेस भी है, हाउ डू यू कनेक्ट दिस टू?
Thank you for all those questions. I think the organizers want us to finish in the next 5 minutes. So what we can do is take the questions, and they're going to speak again in the last round table that is going to be held. Would you like them to respond at that time? Yeah? And take the questions now? And if you permit, I will take one minute. Ma'am, there is one more. Okay, 1 minute.
Yes, so I had two questions. The first was with regards to what Professor Mahajan said about the tradition, that how does one think about tradition, especially in the modern context, where one also has several thinkers in the modern context, where people have precisely argued against tradition, right? We have Ambedkar, Periyar, Phule, and so on. So how does one think about tradition when one encounters more recent modern political thinking? And the second question was with regards to the question of political theory, in the sense that when one talks about concepts like Nyaya, Moksha, and so on from a more simply modern context, how does one apply it to the present context to understand what political conversations are going on right now, with regards to more practical consequences for politics?
Thank you. Extending the point that Manindra sir was making, that we need to think about the way that people are thinking. So I think that we cannot believe that people are thinking in their indigenous ways and they are maybe untouched by the Western concept. The problem is that there is a mix of cognitive sources that people are thinking in. They are also trained in some sort of way in institutional concepts of thinking and their own philosophical or religious or spiritual ways of thinking. So, if to dig that out, that indigenous ways of thinking and those traditions, and to imagine Indian political theory of thought, how are we then thinking of the problem of generalization? The valency of Western political theory is that it helps us to think about the wider social realities, though those may be partial, but they are still able to help us in some sort of generalizing the thing. But if we are thinking of different languages and different contexts and their spatial ways of thinking, then how would we be able to generalize, or do we actually need to get rid of the problem of generalization and carry itself?
All these questions. One sentence each at this stage, because I'm sure we would like to hear it. You should go for it.
I think the most
that, is it defending criticism? I don't think the project has any concern with defending criticism. I think the concern is to carry on the struggle for future struggle for liberation. So this is where I think we need to look for resources for understanding the reality for social transformation. And that I think that for this we need to explore the way we have been thinking for centuries. Are there elements there, or with modernity we have started thinking completely different? I don't think we've started thinking
Well, I think this session is about Manindra's book, so he should be given more time to respond. But I'll make just two short remarks. The question about temporality and historicity. The answer to that is very simple. You know, temporality is a much vaster and much more general concept. Historicity is a certain specific form of temporality. And what impresses me about what I have read about ancient Indian philosophy is the sophistication in thinking about the trace of time in the world, both the natural world and the social world. I'll give an example of something which I find very interesting. It's not something that I'm picking up from any particular text, but if you read discussions about the traces of time, once somebody told me in the United States, I think this was in Chicago, that when I went to Oxford, I found that the buildings in Oxford actually were very much like the buildings that we have in the Chicago University. So I started thinking about that. I wondered whether we shouldn't have said that buildings in Chicago University are actually built like the buildings in Oxford. I think he said that they are built like the buildings in Oxford. And then I started to realize that in the Indian philosophical texts I read somewhere, very interesting, that argument is that of course there are two times. One is the general time of history, and in the general time of history, of course, the Oxford buildings were bigger than the Chicago University building. But there is also a personal time. There is a kind of spending of time in a particular person's life, and the sequence that produced. And in that sequence for this person, the Chicago University buildings were known first, and it's only later that he saw the buildings in Oxford University. So there's a lot of discussion of this kind, which I find extremely interesting, useful. I'll give you another example. Something that I find very useful in general discussion, but this is also partly linked to what I was telling you, that there are many ideas which are general ideas. There is no reason why those general ideas should not be used whenever we are discussing a general idea. An example of that would be, for instance, when I was reading discussions about Kaviraj, there's a discussion about means and ends. But where in the Western tradition, they stop with the distinction between means and ends. They would make a further distinction on the end side. They would, of course, you have a means, if you have an end, in the means side. They would say, well, the means should be divided into two parts. One part of the means is the karana. That is the thing with which you can do something, accomplish something. But the karana is not enough. You also have something which they call, in their language, it's very simple if you follow Sanskrit, it is iti kartavya, that this is how to do that. This is how to do it. I initially felt that, should we make this decision? Actually, in one of the conferences in Boston, somebody said, why do you make such a fetish of it? What does it give us beyond the concept of being? So I thought about it, and next day I told him that, look, what they are saying is that you tell me that tomorrow when you want to go back to New York, you will find the means of transport in front of you. And so I come out in the morning, and I find a helicopter in front of me. So of course the helicopter is a means of transport to New York. So I have the means. If you simply use the means, I would say, of course I have the means. But if you use the distinction between the karana and the itikata, I would say that you haven't given me a way of going back to New York because you are giving me the current, but I do not know the Ithaca. So these are examples, of refinement, essentially logical refinement, which are very, very general. And if you read Indian philosophy, you come across hundreds of examples of these. And those I think we should always use whenever we use. And I'm reminded of a lecture by Vimal Matilal. Matilal inaugural address to Oxford, very interesting title. It's called The Logical Illumination in Indian Mysticism. And initially when I used to know Matilal Matilal, I didn't understand it very well until I started reading a little bit of Indian philosophy myself. And then I realized that this is what he was saying, that you read something which is purportedly about mystical ideas, it is about mystical ideas. And I do not have much interest in that. But while following the argumentation, you come across ideas, which are logical, and they are completely logical. So this is one kind of thing that we can do. Just one remark about the question of tradition. I think the question of tradition is very important because, to me, the best definition of tradition that I have come across in a big book, it's a 600-page book, but what it says basically is that traditions are the thought to which we think. And that is your tradition. It's the most immediate, the most popular thing. And this is from Ghana, the truth and life. And if you think about that, then I think you actually start finding out a whole lot of things which are complex about what is our tradition. Because my tradition in a certain sense is the Western tradition. And I have to go back and read a different, learn a different language, go into texts which are unfamiliar, etc. To go back into something which is the Indian tradition, so-called, and make it accessible to ourselves. So the concept of tradition, I think, is a complex concept. The concept of tradition is not accessible. And the other thing which I found very interesting about the Indian tradition and their thinking about tradition is this emphasis all the time that if the tradition does not renew itself, then it fails to perform the function of the tradition. Because tradition, and I was struck by the fact, because I'm now in a department which has a lot of very, very good sense, very good Islamic scholars and a lot of Islamic political theorists, many of whom work with me as well. This is central to the Islamic tradition. Because Islamic tradition says on the one side that you have to follow the Quran. But I think Islam is also very aware of the changeability of the world, particularly of the social world. So the question of how they advise you should follow a text which is static. The Quran does not change. To say that follow the Quran in a world which is constantly changeable, is it an enigma? Is it a real advice? How do we treat something? That is quite central to the Islamic tradition as well. So I think if we think about what our tradition is, particularly in a kind of post-colonial setting, where the connection with the past is disrupted in a way which is just completely radical, much more radical than we take of yours. I think a whole lot of things come up if you think about that. So I think we need to think about tradition very deeply. And tradition is not something which exists in the past, which is inaccessible to you. So somebody who follows Dharma would say, what do you mean? How is it your tradition? Your tradition is other thought to which you think.
Thank you very much. But I can't resist but see a couple of things because it's been a rather very interesting session in many ways. Perhaps we should have begun by Professor Thakur making at least a brief statement about the book because there are many traditions in this. When we think in terms of the processes and the questions with which we begin, when we write something, that journey will be very different from what is eventually produced. And I think somewhere one needs to get back to that idea where that once writing is there, it fixes meaning which can be read and reread by other people in many different ways. And if I had just sat through this session, I would not have known anything about the book, believe me. Particularly, I think because this on reading the book, I found his job with his main concern, and since readers have much more autonomy here, is to say that social sciences are not really in touch with what Sudipta called, they have a cognitive lag. It's a conceptual lag, and it's also represented in language. So there is a lag which we want to correct. And there is this cognitive deficiency that is there. And to overcome that, he actually, Manindra suggests 2 or 3 things, which I think we can come back to later on, because these are things we've talked about, discussed, debated since at least the 80s, that we need to return to what he says, Samaj ke tattva, something which is very central to the core thinking of society, of a Samaj. And then there are references to things like that the crucial element of the Indian way of thinking is to return to what he says, Prakriti ke niyam. There's a huge, big question, what is Prakriti? And is this nature as we understand it in West? Is it the creation of that omnipotent being which is immanent? All these questions then need to be asked, and we need to ask these questions because it seems that that's why I put translation there very much up front. Because there is already a translation that is at work in the choice of words like moksha as self-consciousness. Not consciousness of the self, but self-consciousness. The concept has a different tradition and history in which it is located. It is mediated so much by all the debates and discussions that are there. But my point really is that that's an enabling thing. We need to own that mediation. Because there is another plea that he has that we need, there is the poverty. I'm using Deepu's first word, more popular otherwise. There is a poverty of the contemporary Western tradition because he's associating the Western tradition with a certain phase of maybe 18th, 19th century thought, where the primacy is to a rational being, and with the richness of Indian classical thought, this non-contemporaneity of 2 traditions itself is something we need to think about. So there is so much to think about, no time. All I would say, we've had great questions and they have left with many, many important questions. That if we live in time in history, we are always, and traditions are alike because they're continuously innovating, responding to situations, and in doing so, they're absorbing influences and ideas which are traveling from around them, from their experiences, from distances far away. In that case, this kind of richness of totality, which is there in the present, can it be only traced back to what existed earlier as in textual traditions? So there are those kinds of questions to be asked. There is also the question of what it means to be a historical being. How are we going to deal with issues and questions that people are confronting and modes in which we are dealing with them? We need fundamentally also to rethink about this dichotomy that we have. We are disconnected from the people. I am very much a people and part of that people. Are social sciences, are we really assuming the social sciences are so disconnected? Or are the social sciences continuously innovating and using vocabularies which help them to connect back and make sense of their experience? So I think there are levels, both methodological and political, sociological, that have actually come up in our discussion, and I'm sure the next session is going to carry them forward. So thank you very much. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to cover all the questions. We will have time again. And you will get more complete answers, I think, in the last session from both of them because they are there. But certainly these questions are going to come up, I know, in the next session because that's one of the reasons. So thank you very much.
This sure was an enlightening session. I thank Professor Kaviraj and Dr. Thakur for speaking on these important ideas, and special thanks to Professor Mahajan for wonderfully chairing the session. Now we break for tea. The next session will begin at 12:10 sharp. The next session is the future of Indian critical thinking. It's chaired by Professor Vidhu Verma, and the speakers are Professor Aditya Nigam and Professor P.K. Datta. See you at 12:10.
पेन की नहीं हो पाएगा 70 में 100 वेरी डिफिकल्ट.
Actually, Sudipta sir का थोड़ा हाँ बच्चा
Sir, would you like some tea? हेलो अपनी बिजी से काम चल रहा है कॉन्फ्रेंस. हाँ हाँ अच्छा ठीक है. इसमें पॉज का ऑप्शन है क्या?